brief outcome from the side events, what to reflect on. We will have also a small review on the financial situation of the UN and merger. And then we are going to break out to breakout rooms, because I would like to have your feedback in smaller rooms on what you said was positive or negative, what we can improve in, what was very good, and what was your takeaway from CSW. Afterwards, there will be one reporter of each group who gives a small overview what was mentioned in that group. Why we do that is because I feel it is very important to have your feedback on what's happening and also to see how we can improve for the future. In the meantime, I would like everybody to be muted who doesn't speak. And please know this will be recorded. That if you don't want to be on screen, please turn off your camera. Thank you very much. Renata, I will give you the word now.
Thank you, Beth, and welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here. Whether you are with us in New York or joining online from across the globe, you're all part of this conversation, and that matters. CSW was demanding an important time for SI. We all showed up with purpose, with our voice, and with the issues of women and girls firmly at the center. This debrief is our chance to reflect together on what happened, what it means, and what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the word to Pat Black. Pat, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, President Renata, and thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are around the world. Thank you for joining us today. It's great to see so many of you here. We're nearly 100 members, so that's terrific. And I have high expectations of people taking back to their clubs, to their regions, to their countries, the outcomes of CSW70. And if I can just recall our previous webinar and remind you that the main outcome of CSW is a set of agreed conclusions. This year, it was negotiated prior to CSW rather than during it. So for the 6 weeks leading up to CSW at the beginning of March, we had lots of work going on, and your SI advocacy team at headquarters was heavily involved in contributing to the text. Once we had got the zero draft, and then we contributed to that, and once we had got the next draft, we contributed to that, and so on, right the way through to the final weekend, when the agreed conclusions were described by UN Women as in final draft form. It was always the intention, having those negotiations beforehand, to present those agreed conclusions having been negotiated at the first session of CSW on Monday, the 9th of March. However, not everything went according to plan. Oh, yes, the agreed conclusions were presented by the chair for consensus agreement. And having been negotiated over the 6 weeks beforehand, the majority of people sitting in the room believed that we were going to get a consensus. However, one member state had other ideas. That particular member state had not engaged in those negotiations prior to CSW70. and protested about the agreed conclusions. They then presented a series of amendments, actually 6 in all, I think it was, in detail, to change the text of the agreed conclusions that had already been negotiated. This, as you can imagine, did not go down very well with most of the people in the room at the time. The member state, and I will use their name because it is public knowledge, was the United States of America. They eventually forced a vote. The European Union, through the Netherlands, proposed that the amendments be taken all together, that we didn't separate them out. And the USA objected to that because they knew they might have 1 or 2 supporters on 1 or 2 of the amendments. However, after a vote, it was agreed that they would all be taken as a block. Those were then defeated. That block of amendments was defeated. However, the USA weren't giving up, and so they forced, for the first time in CSW history, a vote on the agreed conclusions. Needless to say, the agreed conclusions were passed in total as negotiated, with 1 vote against and a few abstentions. However, it left a very nasty taste in the room. And the US were not going to give up, because it became clear during the course of that first week, and by the weekend, a further resolution from the US was circulating, and they phrased it, the protection of women and girls through appropriate terminology. That disguises a whole aspect of CSW and women's rights that have been agreed, negotiated over many, many years. But the US tried to say that this referred back to the Beijing Platform for Action, where the word gender had never been introduced, and it had certainly never been agreed as a full terminology throughout the United Nations, various resolutions and documents and things, references, texts, whatever. But there were enormous flaws in that. The one I will mention straight away is, what about SDG 5, our special own gender equality, SDG 5? That was agreed in 2015 by the whole of the General Assembly. So there was initially an obvious flaw in the US's argument, but our very own Linda Whitall spent time developing a brief for the SI delegation, which was then shared across many other delegations, including missions, outlining why the US presenting this resolution had got it wrong. And fortunately, we were able to spend time lobbying so many missions and other organizations to try to prevent them taking this forward on the last day of CSW, when the agreed conclusions would be presented for the final time. In that last session of CSW, a vote was forced again by the member state, by the USA, but this time Belgium, on behalf of most of the European countries, proposed that no further action be taken. In other words, they didn't open a debate on this particular proposal. They didn't go back over the text in any way. They just proposed that no further action be taken at all. Unfortunately, they were successful. The number of extensions increased because there were some countries who would have preferred to have a debate, particularly over the issue of the word gender. But there was only one vote against, and that was the United States again. The agreed conclusions, as drafted, therefore were adopted for presentation to ECOSOC in September and then on to the General Assembly after that. However, I think everybody in the international NGO community and probably the member state community are aware that it's possible the US will try again at some point to prevent the CSW70 agreed conclusions being finally accepted, or to try to change the wording. They have been, if you follow the United Nations, they have been following the same pattern of behavior to try to remove various parts of agreed text about women over the last few months. So we shall have to wait and see. And just to run briefly over some of the main points which were actually agreed, member states reaffirmed their commitment on the priority theme to eliminating discriminatory laws, policies and practices, strengthening inclusive and gender-responsive justice systems, improving access to legal aid and legal empowerment, ensuring accountability for violation of women's rights, and preventing and responding to violence against women and girls. They called for the need to eliminate discriminatory laws, policies, and practices, and to adopt targeted measures to ensure the full, equal, and meaningful participation of all women in political, economic, and social life. And that gives us as Soroptimists a means of holding those member states to account. The text also highlights the importance of accessible and confidential reporting mechanisms, and that again we can monitor, survivor-centered justice procedures, protection against re-victimization. I'm sure you are aware that often survivors of trafficking are then turned into victims by being prosecuted. And obviously effective remedies and reparations for victims. The final text for this CSW gives recognition that justice systems must respond to the diverse realities of women. And this is one of the things the US objected to, including women with disabilities, migrant women and or workers, Indigenous women, women in rural or remote areas, women belonging to ethnic or religious minorities, older women and adolescent girls, and women in detention or imprisonment. I'm not saying that's the complete range, but that gives you an idea of what we were protecting and what the US was trying to remove. However, agreed conclusions are never perfect. There's always more that we would like to have seen, and they don't always reflect current realities. It fails to explicitly mention other marginalized groups or prosecuted groups, such as human rights defenders or widows, highlighting ongoing political resistance to include human rights language. And again, it wasn't just the US who were trying to remove the human rights aspect that we had fought for over many years. There were several other member states. Fortunately, Hungary is no longer one of them. While these commitments are important, it is crucial to note that CSW outcomes are not legally binding. That means that these have to be taken back to each individual country with political will and national implementation essential for progress. So the task for Soroptimists around the world is to make themselves aware of these outcomes and advocate for what is appropriate in their own countries. Now, you think I've finished, don't you?
Yeah.
But I haven't, because
you have 1 minute left, Pat.
well, I only need a minute, because agreed conclusions are not the only outcome. We have resolutions at CSW as well. And this time there were 2 resolutions. One, the women, girl, child, and HIV/AIDS. And one on violence against women and girls, trying to increase the way in which member states protect women and girls in all sorts of circumstances. But if you want to know more, then obviously there's a lot more on the Soroptimist International website, as well as the UN website. So let's look forward to CSW71. But in the meantime, make sure we get CSW70 implemented. Thank you, Bert.
Thank you very much, Pat. Thank you for this overview, what is indeed very, very important. And let's work all together to it. Now, if I may, are we going just to have a short overview of the side events, their impact and outcome, what has happened. So thank you very much. And I will give the first floor to Ulla.
Thank you, Berthe. Dear Soroptimists, dear colleagues, it is with sincere regret that our planned side event, Climate Justice and Gender Equality, addressing the impact of climate change on Indigenous women and girls, scheduled on the 10th of March, unfortunately did not take place during the CSW70 as originally intended. This event was created with great passion and commitment through the cooperation of Soroptimist International, the International Work Group for Indigenous Affairs, and the Permanent Mission of Denmark to the United Nations. We had looked forward to creating an important space for dialogue on an issue that matters deeply. Unfortunately, a number of unforeseen circumstances have made it impossible for us to proceed. Due to the calling of election in Denmark, the Danish Minister for the Environment and Gender Equality, Magnus Heunicke, and the Greenlandic Member of Parliament, Aya Kemnis, were required to remain in Denmark to fulfill their important responsibilities at home. They were both a part of the event. At the same time, two of our distinguished panelists from Cameroon and Thailand decided that they did not feel able to travel because of the situation in the Middle East. And finally, I, as one of the organizers, was unfortunately unable to travel due to sudden illness. While we are naturally disappointed, we also recognize that sometimes circumstances beyond our control require us to pause, even when the cause is one we care deeply about. The topic we intended to address remains as urgent and important as ever. Climate justice, gender equality, and the voices and rights of Indigenous women and girls deserve our continued attention, our advocacy, and our action. This conversation is not canceled in spirit, only proposed in time. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the Permanent Mission of Denmark for their extraordinary kindness, support, and willingness to host this event. Their commitment to these issues and their understanding throughout this process has meant a great deal to us, and we are truly thankful for their partnership. We sincerely hope to return to this important conversation in the near future under better circumstances and with the strong voices it deserves. Thank you for your understanding. And now I'm sure you're going to listen to very successful events. Thank you, Berthe.
Thank you, Ulla. Your impact was very useful, and also it's not because of you, it has been on circumstances that something happened. Thank you for your work. Next, we will go hear from Tanya, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Bert, for giving me the floor to present the results and the discussions we had during the side event at CSW70. Our side event where we worked very consistently and hardly with high-level officers. We had the participation of ITU officers, Ursula van Wijnhoven. We had the Belgian ambassador to the UN, His Excellency Bart de Wolf. We had also the Sex Discrimination Commissioner for the Australian government, Dr. Cody. We had high officers for UNICEF, UN Women, from Microsoft. We had also the ambassador of the UK present, and we were surrounded by a lot of energy and drive. And during this side event, there was one message which was unmistakably clear, and it was, today, empowerment is digital. For Soroptimist International, empowerment has always meant enabling all women and girls to reach their full potential. But currently, we are living in an increasingly digital world, and this requires more than access to technology. It requires power to participate, to lead, and to shape the systems that define our societies. And we heard during the side event that when public life moves online, exclusion from those digital spaces become also exclusion from the decision-making itself. So it's not just a technical issue that we are talking about, it's a fundamental barrier to equality. So I want to be brief, and I want to say what does empowerment look like in the context of the side event we were contributing and participating. First of all, it means ensuring safe digital spaces, because where women cannot lead, we cannot have an innovative, integral perspective. So safety is a pillar to build digital systems from the start that can have meaningful participation from all women and girls. Secondly, empowerment requires a voice in emerging technologies. It's from artificial intelligence to digital governance. Women and girls should be architects of the future, meaning we should not be only users, we should be decision makers. That's why leadership, innovation, and risk diminishing, it's a very high goal that everyone should be looking at. The third point is when empowerment has a meaning when we turn digital skills into real opportunities. So training itself is not enough empowerment. Women and girls, we need mentorship, sponsorship, confidence, access to leadership pathways, because we influence economies and also we influence our society. To close, I want to tell you about the impact. And empowerment in the digital age is about the possibility to act. It's about agency. It's about ensuring that all women and girls are present in the digital world and in the digital economy so that we together are powerful within that sphere. So Soroptimist International has increasingly created more collaboration frameworks. We had very close relationship with high officers within UN agencies, governments, and we are working closely with ITU for systemic change. So I want to say a big thank you to Renata, Bert, and all the advocacy team, because we have worked hard during CSW70 and because we are championing women's and girls' leadership in the digital sphere. And I want to close, Bert, saying that when women and girls are empowered digitally, we are empowered everywhere. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tanya. It was also a very exciting event. Okay, moving on. Pascal from her hospital bed, but I'm so pleased that she can join us for her event on water as a very important subject too. Pascal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Berta. Yes, I have to apologize my setting and probably the way that I look. But I was silly enough to have a ski accident last week and I was operated. So, but still, I'm very happy to be able to join this meeting. I am talking quietly. You will understand why. I hope you can all understand me and I will try and keep it very brief. I'm very happy to continue at another level or at another meeting in more detail. So we ran 2 events on water at CSW. We ran one which was shared with the Women for Water Partnership and other sponsors, and we ran one which was mainly SI only, which is water, our most essential resource. Out of both the events, the following messages were really clear. First, water issues are so much wider than what we sometimes simplify into WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene issues. These days, especially because of climate change, there are many other issues that prevent women and girls from safe access to water, from access to clean water, and that enable their economic empowerment. And we need to widen the way that we think about water issues and so that we don't blindside a lot of other issues for a lot of women. That does not mean to say that WASH is not important. It is, I'm afraid. There's just more issues that we now need to address. Based on that starting point, SI grassroots projects, which we were very lucky to review 5 in detail in these 2 events, reflect that kind of historic, if you want, bias. So most indeed start at water access and at hygiene, providing access to water for women and hygiene for women. But what actually was really interesting, that when we heard the people, the representatives for these projects talk, and you all know who you are, I know there are some here today, thank you for that. When we heard these people talk, we realized that actually water access secured broader rights, different rights, like education, like safety, like food security, and even like getting education to be a welder. So water was a starting point in many of these projects to empowerment, and that is, I think, a key message that we need to bring forward. Few of the grassroots projects at the moment start at the root cause of the lack of water access, which these days, sadly, is pollution, environmental impact, etc. So I would like to recommend that we educate our members and encourage a wider perspective on the water issues and work at the ground cause of the issues, as well as the subsequent consequences, which is the lack of safe water in villages all around the world, or in or the coastal areas all around the world. Now, given the spread of this issue, given how big this issue has become, it is essential, I think, that we collaborate with other feminists and environment organizations. This isn't a battle that we should fight on our own. This isn't a battle that should be fought only at grassroots level. It is a battle that should be fought together with other NGOs, with UN Water, and with UNESCO. UNESCO has just published a new report. Please read it, about the effects of water scarcity on gender equality. It is very interesting. We need to all work together and make sure that we don't duplicate efforts, but we work together for the betterment of women's life and rights everywhere. The one thing that will come up, I believe, and at the UN Water Conference at the end of the year in 2026, is empowerment. Women in water are really lacking in leadership roles. The UNESCO report I talked to talks about 20% of only 20% of leadership positions in water-related organizations being women. 20%, that's really low. So we need to create empowerment, and the way to create empowerment in this particular topic may very well require a new way of governance. One of the speakers at our event was the Secretary for Indigenous Women of Brazil. She was most interesting. The speech is available also online. And she talked about how Brazil has really developed a new way of governance with a very flat structure and really empowering women all the way through their government, actually. And that might just be an interesting model to look at in the future. That concludes the messages that were being said in the events. If I may, just about the organization, talk a little bit just about the organization and the impact. We were probably 9 people altogether. We probably worked about 30 working days. We spent about 30 working days probably developing this event, and we reached in total just under 300 people directly. We really focused on, and you heard Tanya talk about it as well, we really focused on enabling digital access as well. We probably didn't do it as good as we could, but we started, and so we had all events also available digitally. And we had some good participation already. I'm sure we can do better. We need to look at how much the call to action to join the UNESCO database has delivered. We don't know that yet, but I am hopeful. And if you haven't yet, and you know of some grassroots organization that should join this database, then please do so or reach out to us and we will tell you how. And we also need to look at the social media effect. But I can already tell you that some of the posts had a good traction. Not massive, but good. Again, areas for improvement. What worked was that we had an efficient team, and I can recommend smaller teams being better than bigger teams. We had a good lineup in the end. We had, as I said, the Secretary of Brazil talking, and we had the representative of UAE talking as well. Sadly, we did not have enough participation from the Commonwealth, and that is one of my learnings, actually, is that, and you've heard it from Pat, the crucial part at CSW is to be able to link our messages to what member states are fighting for in the room, in the big room. And in order to do that, we need contacts. We need direct contacts to be able to influence what is happening in the whole. And we had some of it, and you heard Pat talk about the successes, but we did not have enough. We did not have links for every one of our countries. And that is something that I think we should be fighting for. Thank you for your attention. Thank everybody for the participation. Better back to you.
Thank you, Pascal, and wishing you a steady recovery. Next one, we will hear from Lola, who was responsible also for the violence against women side event. Thank you very much. Lola, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Bert. Good morning, everyone, or hello, everyone. Our presentation, Breaking the Code, AI, Cultural Norms, and Ending Cyber Violence Against Women, was hosted by Soroptimist International, Commonwealth Business Women's Network, Permanent Representation of Belgium, Mission of Australia, Mission of Romania, and FGM European Network, EU Transparency, and Hand Over Hand. Prior to our panel discussion, we first heard from Padma Rahman, Head of Delegation for the Mission of Australia. Ms. Rahman provided an overview of the innovative steps Australia has taken towards online safety and regulatory actions on platforms emphasizing safety by design principles and responsiveness to safety issues. Artificial intelligence is reshaping governance, economies, and social systems. It is creating opportunities for innovation and expression while simultaneously enabling new forms of violence against women and girls. Our panel discussion was moderated by Linda Wittong, SI Advocacy Advisor and Vice Chair of the Board of the Alliance of NGOs on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. Our panelists were Carolyn Van Hoofel, Associate Director, Cyber and Digital Risk Management, Technology and Global Services, Her Excellency Dr. Vanessa Rosser, Ambassador Representative, World of Life Christian Fellowship, Marianne Naguna, Director of End FGM European Network, EU Transparency, and Gail Dekron, retired California Superior Court Judge and SIA's Board of Directors, Secretary-Treasurer, and myself as a retired police lieutenant from the Glendale Police Department. Each of us spoke on the emerging issues of AI and its impact on women and girls as it related to our respective expertise in technology, law enforcement, social construct, FGM, and judicial perspective. The advent of AI, and specifically generative AI, has amplified cyber violence against women and girls on a global scale. Technology has transformed our lives, but it has also exposed us to new ways of abuse. As such, there must be safety by design, digital literacy, and legal accountability. Therefore, our outcomes and calls to action must entail urgent legislative action, platform accountability, inclusive AI development, a holistic approach to this issue, and women's digital inclusion. This discussion amplified civil society's voices and the need for multi-stakeholder collaboration to break cultural codes of silence and bias, ensuring that AI promotes equity rather than amplifying harm. And that's it. Thank you for this opportunity, Bert and President Renata, for being here today. Bert, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you very much, Lola. Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. And now we're going to the fifth one is in the education. Margarita, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bert, and hello, everyone. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share with you the result of our side event titled Knowledge is Power, Education as a First Step to Justice for Women and Girls. So the event was hosted at the office of the Permanent Mission of Ireland to the United Nations and co-organized, of course, by us and the Graduate Women International and supported by key partners, including the Permanent Mission of Sierra Leone and Mongolia, with a strong contribution of SDSN and Credit Access India. From an organizational perspective, I would like to praise the excellent work of all our team, which finally ensured the participation of these high-level cross-sector stakeholders. We brought together a great and diverse group of voices, which included Minister Emer Higgins of Ireland, Minister Isata Mahoy of Sierra Leone, and the Ambassador Fergal Myton from the Permanent Mission of Ireland, alongside the Pia Brito from UNICEF and Nabila Agwele from Malala Fund Nigeria and Professor Patrick Paul Walsh from SDSN. So in terms of delivery, we welcome around 100 participants in person, with many more joining online via live streaming. The session was strategically designed as a moderated fireside chat, and this format created a very coherent and dynamic exchange, allowing speakers to build on each other's insight and address key themes, which included the role of education in leadership, particularly by centering girls as a powerful agent of change, capable of driving sustainable and context-driven solution. We also discussed lifelong learning, highlighting the urgent need to embed into national education systems so that individuals can continuously acquire skills, adapt to technological change, and remain active participant in the labor market. In addition, the conversation addresses the digital transformation, recognizing that technology alone cannot transform education unless the underlying system also evolves. Importantly, we extended the overall discussion beyond the formal session with other civil society organizations, and we had space for networking and receiving feedback, which further strengthened engagement. So the immediate outcomes, I think they were very positive. We received direct appreciation from the ambassador. Myton will express interest in continuing collaboration. We also received strong feedback from our co-organizer and speakers through the communication teams, confirming both the relevance and the quality of the discussion we had. On dissemination and visibility, within 1 week after the event, we shared one-page press release and a summary report with all partners. This ensures consistent and aligned communication across the whole organization. We were, in addition, actually, I want to add that we have now a landing page that hosts the event recording, which will allow us to extend the life and reach of the discussion beyond the CSW70. In terms of broader impact, I would highlight 3 key results. First, we confirmed and strengthened, I think, Soroptimist's position as a high-level international actor. Second, we demonstrated the capacity to convene effective and well-presented multi-stakeholder partnership that represent governments, UN agencies, civil society, academia, and private sector. And we contributed to advancing a shared narrative, which is education is not only a fundamental right, but a driver of justice and systemic change. So to conclude, I would like to say that this event showed that when strong organizations come together with a clear purpose, the impact goes far beyond a single moment. And for us, it was a clear expression of our professionalism, our vision, and the leading role that we have in shaping global conversation on education and equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita. That was very well done. Thanks very much. Just to give you all an overview on everything. So that were the side events. Of course, we have also reporting on the parallel events, but that is for another time. Now we're going to move further to Linda to give you an overview on the situation and the UN on UN80 and merger. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, and thank everyone for being here, and thank Bertha and Renata for honoring me with this presentation. I'm going to be talking about the UN Women merger, and I also will touch briefly on the financial affairs of the UN, which are beginning to affect all of us in various ways. What's happening with the UN Women and why it matters to us. I want to talk to you because this is a matter that it should affect and will affect all of us and every woman we serve if it goes through. There's a proposal on the table at the United Nations to merge UN Women with another UN agency called the UNFPA. That's the agency focused on reproductive health and population issues. Together, they would become one new combined organization. So you might think, why should we care about a new reorganization, right? Well, you might not think, why should I care about reorganization happening in building in New York? But here's why. UN Women is the only agency in the entire United Nations system that has the word woman in its name. If the word woman disappears, what happens to the organization that was created specifically and only to advance the rights of women and girls around the world? To set the standards, to hold governments accountable, to give civil society organization like ours a seat at the table when big decisions are made. If that name disappears and if the mission gets blended with other priorities, the women and girls who depend on that work will lose their champion at the global level. And that matters here because everything we do at Soroptimist International connects to the global frameworks and indirectly to all of you and our regions. So what's actually happening? The UN is turning 80 this year. And to mark that anniversary, the Secretary General launched what he called the UN 80 Initiative, a major review of how the UN is organized and how it spends its money, what money it has left. But hopefully we'll get to that just briefly. Part of that review looks at whether certain agencies should be combined to save money and work more efficiently. On April 6th of this year, there was a large briefing at the UN headquarters where the heads of both of the UN Women and the UNFPA presented a preliminary report saying, yes, a merger is technically possible, but only if the missions of both agencies are fully protected. Member states from around the world responded, and this is what the room actually said. Country after country, representing more than half of the world, stood up and said, we are not against reform, but you have given us a recommendation without a plan. You have told us what a merged organization would actually look like? No. You have not shown us how you would protect the missions. You have not shown us the financial analysis. Actually did, but they got a little bit of criticism for that. They said that they would save they would cost $110 million to do the merger, but not to worry because every year they would thereafter save $30 million. And that was part of the problem. They weren't showing how they were going to do that. Moving along. You have not answered the most basic question is what happens to the word woman? The last question about the name was actually raised in the room by a delegation from Maldives, and there was no answer to that. Now, some countries were supportive of exploring a merger. France, the European Union, and others said, we understand that the financial pressures are real, and we are open to this, but only with rock-solid guarantees. Others were more cautious. My personal favorite was South Africa, gave what I can only describe as a master class in holding the Secretariat accountable. They said in diplomatic but unmistakable terms, this report does not contain enough evidence to support its own conclusions. We cannot agree with what it's written. And he was even in once and twice every now and then moving his hands for emphasis. And importantly, several countries, including Russia, insisted that member states must control every step of this process. Well, now that may make you feel kind of warm and fuzzy. They're concerned about this. But when you know that some of those countries have been actively trying to weaken language on women's rights and reproductive health UN agreements for years, that, quote, oversight starts to look a lot more like blocking strategy. So what does this mean for all of us? Soroptimist International is actively monitoring this process. We're engaged at the UN, and believe me, we are asking hard questions and citing citations and language wherever we can, whenever we can. We are connecting with other women's organizations at their request to make sure that the civil society, our voices, are included in these decisions, not just member governments. The most important thing you can do right now is stay informed and stay engaged. The decisions made in the coming months will shape the global architecture for women's rights for decades. We did not come this far from Beijing platform to CSW today to watch it quietly get reorganized away. As to the motive behind this, they also say that it's not financial. However, what you need to know is out of 193 countries that should be paying their dues on a timely basis, only 100 have paid it. Three of the major countries have not paid it yet. And one of the countries, and actually it's not the United States in this case, purposely will perhaps refrain from paying it until just before the fiscal term ends, because they know that if they do that, then within a day or so, they're going to get a huge credit because the money wasn't spent. If that sounds like an Alice in Wonderland theme, that's because it is. And believe me when I say there are countries and there are NGO delegates that are trying to change that particular procedure from happening. There is a increasing awareness that what may be happening is feng shui on deck chairs of the UNN, I won't say the Titanic, but on the UNN ship. And that's because they have also delayed any further discussions on how to raise cash, on how to create more money, not only by July, but for the rest of the year. They delayed that until May and any decision until the end of May. And the problem, folks, is that we have learned that we may be running out of cash at the UN by July. Now, you may not think that, oh, well, they've said that before, but already we're seeing UN doing virtual meetings rather than in-person meetings in an effort to save money. It's starting to happen now. And what that means is that we may be given less opportunity to actually meet and network with each other, and more importantly, meet and network with the states. So while you may not think it's important now, please do monitor what the Fifth Committee is up to, especially at the end of May. SI certainly will be doing that and certainly will provide its input on both that as well as the merger. Thank you for your time and patience to listen to what might be boring for some people, but believe me when I say its effects will be profound throughout the world.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. And I agree with you. And I can give you another example also, because due to the financial situation, the treaty committees like CEDAW or the CRC cannot hold their 3 sessions a year because there is no funding anymore. Just to give you another example from things that are happening at UN. Okay, so now we're going to the fun part. We're going to breakout rooms, and you will be selected randomly to go to rooms, and every room has a facilitator. And it's very simple. We want to hear from you, your honest reflection on CSW70. Both what worked well or what could we do better, and how we have to include Soroptimist International, how are side events, how are parallel events, and how is the wider perhaps process of CSW. The facilitator will appoint a reporter, and the reporter comes back to the full meeting for a report for approximately 3 minutes. So I meet you in 2 seconds.
Hello again.
I hope that everybody had a good session, and perhaps we can have a short overview by the reporters from room 1. I don't know who it is.
Deborah?
Yeah.
Deborah?
Room 1, the reporter is Annika Triberg.
Okay, Annika, please.
Yes, hello, hi. This was so nice to be able to talk to each other in a smaller group like this. And I was hoping I wasn't the first one out because I tried to but overall, I would say that those of us in the group that were first timers all said that it was a bit confusing. Where to go, what to choose, and so on, like being overwhelmed by everything you could choose from during this conference. But also everyone agreed on that the webinars we had in advance were very helpful. And that gave us also a little clue about the SI events that we would like to join. And let me see. And also many said that the briefings in the morning were very helpful, and also like the debriefings in the afternoon. And the possibility to make new connections if you just, I mean, it's up to you, right?
Yeah, of course.
Utilize, yes. Some of us said that she wasn't aware of the influence actually that the Soroptimists have, that we were so many. And maybe we should be prouder, I think, being part.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Like we always say, we are the best kept secret.
Definitely, definitely. Well, overall, it was great to get together, and the SIE meeting we had was very nice to socialize a little in a smaller group. Maybe that's sort of something I would like to add. Maybe a whole event for everyone from the Soroptimists for the next time. I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you very much, Annika.
You're welcome. That was just part of it. Oh, let me just add the WOA app. We were not very pleased with that.
Yeah, the WOA, but that is out of our hands because that's organized by the NGOs.
But, maybe if you like to.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So thank you.
I know very much. Okay, room 2.
Okay, thank you,
Christine.
Again, the sessions before CSW, people found very helpful. And it was it's much clearer now after the webinar today. First time, it was a great experience, but it wasn't easy at first. People would love to do it every year, but obviously that's not always possible. People were disappointed about some of the things not being secure for women, and I think that was important. And the no consensus of all member states, that was a real issue for us. What can we do better? The biggest thing came out as mentorship, and for a first timer, having somebody to explain things would be really good. More opportunities to attend various side events and parallel events. People went into events, meetings, and they'd started, and that was difficult to pick up on things. Preparation for people attending is key. Online access, we need to make it wider for all members of Soroptimist International. and very much agree on mentoring.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you, Christine. Room 3, please.
Room 3.
Thank-
Deborah, do you want to do the summary or do you want me to do the summary?
I don't mind. I've emailed it to you, Linda.
I know, and it's a fantastic summary.
Really organised, huh?
Okay, so really good points from a SIE team participant who's previously attended. While she thought that it might be more effective to have a smaller version of CSW rather than a cast that rivals the Opera Aida, many events because of that were not at the same level. SI had a measured participation. We had a side event for each pillar, one parallel event. This afforded really good coverage in everybody's opinion, and briefings each day regarding the events were good. Participation this year was better than ever. And despite CSW being a smaller event, we made a big difference. There was frustration on a number of participants that they wanted to go home and contact their governments and decision makers, and we need to obviously encourage more of this. What could we do differently? Very interesting and good ideas here. Been twice previously to take a while to learn the event, but we want to do more. They wanted to coordinate better, especially using technology, get more organized to cover as much as we can. But overall, it seemed to be a very important moment for Soroptimists to take a while to get prepared. However, the Federation did put much effort to support them. We could extend the preparations across the year, which might be a good idea. And we do recognize the expense in New York, but we were discussing the possibility, which I thought was a good idea, of organizing block booking of rooms. We were dutifully reminded by Deborah, who's always on top of these things, that we tried that before, and in one case we got burned. So we have to take that into consideration too. And then first time feedback, a great experience, amount of information, which is overwhelming. It's like a television show at 2 a.m. with all fuzz. You're just like, whoa. But the daily briefings did help. But what they thought was, I think, and others have said, mentor or a shadow that perhaps with a first time attendee could be with them like SIE is, a buddy system for the first day or so to try and explain to them how to navigate, what issues might be important for them to look at, and just sort of explain the layout of the land and answer any questions. That seemed to be very well received. What could have helped? The conference hotel we've talked about, first timer meetings in the lobby and sessions on the ground. They said that perhaps they know how busy we are. They know that we're already doing a session, but for first timers, maybe either earlier before the things start, we could have a meeting for them and be there for any questions. And there's no such thing as a stupid question. Any question that they have. And during the weekend, maybe the day before would be helpful and help with planning of what to attend because there's so many choices, so little time. And what is relevant to her organization, their organization, and what they're interested in. And it would also be helpful for people traveling on their own to have something like that accessible. We've already talked about the buddy system, a digital map of where to find documents, and the time that we poured into this event. SIE said, for example, their group is now going to be the SIE advocacy team. Our first donor or first timer said, first timer said, don't try to do too much because at that point they got overextended. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Very well. Room 4,
thank Deborah
please.
for the summary.
Thanks, Deborah.
Teamwork.
Room 4, please.
Okay, to speak after Linda is hard task.
Elliot, come on.
We had a really interesting discussion, and we agreed that it is really important to be involved at the CSW because it's the main platform where we can speak about gender equality. We had a few members of our group were also members of the national delegations, and we agreed that the collaboration with the national delegations worked mainly really good. What we have to improve is that these collaborations is not only during CSW, but all the year, and especially during the negotiation process, so that we can be more involved and have more influence in the process much before. We spoke about the fact that there are now not negotiations anymore during the CSW itself, and that this is not a good sign, not only for our involvement in the negotiation, but also from the symbolic point of view, because this gives a sign that NGOs are not that anymore important for the UN and all the process. We heard about that the NGOs have hard times on all levels at the UN, not only in gender equality, but obviously mainly for what regards the subject of gender equality. And so it is important that we are present. And then we spoke, and then we one very important thing is we agreed that a lot of side events were boring, really boring, because it was always promised.
Ours also?
No, it was pointed out that the Soroptimist did really point out that because the Soroptimist side events, they were really excelling and they were really good, but other side events were boring. And because there were always a written speech by some people reporting not really relevant, the experts had not that time that they that they were would have been important that they have, and then there were no time for discussion because usually the people speaking was speaking too long, and so they promised always on discussion and question, and but that had not enough place. So this was room 4.
Thank you, Elliot. Room 5, please.
Yes, we had thoughts about the side events particularly. There was a feeling that planning the side events collectively might be useful because there was a sense that people actually contributing to the side events didn't necessarily know who else was doing what, and that there were some overlapping themes, and that perhaps if people had known what skill sets were in the place, then we might have been able to make a bit more out of that. And then there was a sense of not really understanding what our overall impact is in the UN, either in the side events or more particularly how we can get involved with UN people or UN connections, and what is that impact. There was a comment that it comes across as a bit disorganized, but then we moved on to there was a comment that we were meeting with UN bodies enough and not being seen as leaders. However, then we had the other side of that, which was from SIE particularly and SIGB as well, where because we're so embedded in our missions and so on, then actually connecting with those UN bodies is much easier. And so it seems to be that depending on where you are in the world and how connected you are to your country, then the value perhaps of CSW is very different, and the value of your connection to the UN missions and so on. There was a feeling that SI did a great job, and but that we could talk about more topics. But equally, there was a sense that some of the side events, there was a thought that maybe we could have a theme, or we could be known for a particular thing. And there was a wondering whether some of the side events were perhaps not obviously connected to the priority theme, and whether we could maybe have them a bit more connected to the priority theme, so that we, it says this side event is connected to justice this year, for example. We talked a lot about that, really. We didn't get to the question about what we do differently. We didn't get that far. We were still talking.
No problem. Thank you very much, Truth. Okay, room 6, please. Sorry, we're running over time.
Okay, that's me.
Tanya.
I had a really nice group, very eager and knowledgeable Soroptimists in the room. And Bert has given us a clear direction for for having the breakouts, and I wanted to have real-time data visualization, and I wanted to have a simple way of collecting the data. So what I'm going to show you is the interactive board. It was created for this breaking out room, and we collected feedback specifically of 6 questions. So initially we used Mentimeter, and the first graphic you see is the world, and we could drop a pin on the location we were based today. So I had 10 Soroptimists out of the 12 in the group dropping a pin. Second question, which has 3 subsets. It was about, do we understand CSW? I must say that the average was 4.5 in the scale of 1 to 5. So I had a very confident room.
Yeah.
And a very knowledgeable room. So then I moved into creating a word cloud about which is the overall impression of CSW70 and the involvement of Soroptimist International. And you can see the great feedback. Good start, more to do, great opportunity, SI visibility increased, very good, strong. We are getting well known. We are an empowering organization. Bert, I will share these slides with you later on and with the team. The next question was, do you think SI involvement was impactful and important? And I just need to say that 10 out of 12 said it was impactful. So other point is that this questionnaire was anonymous so that everyone could vote honestly and directly. Next question was, where did you feel that SI's contribution wasn't strongest this year? So, Bert, it's all over the place, good feedback, communication with the delegations, with the missions, member states. Our presentations were great. We were working at a high level. We made impact on the agreed conclusions. So I am very grateful for my team who took the time to answer for all of us. The last question was, which were the areas where we could have done more? More high-level events. Someone was very satisfied. Not really. It was good as it is. More visibility actions. The way of approaching was good. So I can only say that we had a great group who provided a lot of meaningful feedback, and we did it together in real time and with data that Bert and Renata can use for the next events. Thank you, Bert.
Thank you very much, Tanya. This is great. I think we can do that for the whole group once.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That we have the mentor meter per country and everything. I'm sure that everybody would love to do this. Thanks very much. Okay, sorry, ladies, we're going over time, but I'm going to close almost the webinar. So I'm pleased to give Renata a closing word before we go into the CSW71. Renata, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bert. Thank you to all of you. There's not much I can say right now, except for thank you for those who attended, to those who joined online, those who prepared all the work they did, and for your feedback today. I think it's very valuable. And I also took a few notes, a few very, pointed notes, so that we have ideas how we still can improve. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. We know that. The most important thing what I bring back is that we need to bring people on board, especially those who the first timer or maybe the second timer. We really will think about the way to make the start easier for them so that they do not lose an entire week until they know how to get around. So I think that's really an important point I will bring back home. And we will work on that next year. And as Bert said, it starts soon. So I look forward to see many of you again next year, online or in person. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renata. And I'm just going to close that indeed for CSW71. We welcome you all on board. Let's work together to it. We will start sending emails out to everybody and information as of end of August. And the theme for next year is a revision of the SDGs. So we have work to do, ladies. And certainly if we want to go and connect with our governments and to prepare in advance. So thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for your involvement in person.